online broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows. Interviewing celebrities and showrunners. And bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Yeah.
Should I do the bite the lip, maybe?
Yeah, no, please don't do the overbite. There's only one white man's overbite here in this podcast. It's Joe Sanfelippo, who's not here.
Out of respect, I won't do it.
Yes, please, out of respect to Joe San. Welcome to True Detective AFTERBUZZ After Show, or AFTERBUZZ TV's True Detective After Show, or any order you'd like it. I'm Joe Braswell. I'm joined by my man, Ben Bateman.
What's up, man? How you doing?
How you doing, Ben?
Oh, dude, I'm great. I'm so excited to talk about this episode.
Sweet jacket, sweet suit.
Thanks, man.
Sweet pocket square.
It's really nice of you to say.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, like my T-shirt is great, but I don't know, not as cool. We are not joined by Joe Sanfelippo. Actually, we are joined by Joe Sanfelippo. He's going to be on the phone here in a second if he's not already on the phone. And then we are not joined by Julia Carley, who has some other business. She's shooting some stuff and doing some other cool stuff, but she will be back next week, and she's very sad she's not here. But in the meantime, go ahead.
I was gonna say, this is an exciting one to be missing some pieces for, man. This was like the big breakthrough we talked about last week.
Yeah, to a certain degree. I think there is. We do have a breakthrough in some ways. In some ways, we don't. I mean, I did love the episode. We'll get into it.
Yeah.
There's a lot. We're seeing Frank's descent in the true gangsterness. Kind of reminds me a lot of like American Gangster, like Denzel sort of. I mean, a lot of like going, the showing him going sort of place to place and and getting his house in order and reestablishing himself as a gangster.
How are you feeling about that? Like I know that's generally speaking the most polarizing sort of part of the show so far has been his arc.
Yeah, I think we should we'll get to that. I think we'll get to that with Frank. So far so good. I mean, I'm still fancy a little bit. I'm kind of on the fence a little bit about Vaughn's performance, but I'm mostly in.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of tired of at this stage of the game, episode 4.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of tired of either I'm in or I'm out. I feel like I don't want to be complaining about whether or not Vince Vaughn is good or not.
Sure.
I feel like I'm kind of in, and I like to still judge it after 8 episodes and see where we're at. And
right.
Then say, you know what, Vince Vaughn sucked, or you know what, not bad. But right now, I'm in for the ride.
I heard a click. That sounds like another Joe.
Wow, that's good. That's good to hear.
What's up, kids?
I knew it.
Hey, Joe San.
What's up, Joe Brad?
How are you?
Every day is Christmas.
That's right. We're doing a podcast right now. You're on it.
I figure that's what we should do.
Yeah, you're on speaker, man. Don't say anything embarrassing.
Yeah, we're on it right now. It's happening right now.
Well, I figured that was what was happening.
All right. Well, we're just talking about we're just kind of going over the episode a little bit before we get into the actual some plot points. But we're having a general conversation about your guy Vince Vaughn and his sort of believability. I know you had some questions about his accent and some other things, and how he was rolling or how he was written, or everything else. But how are you feeling about him right now?
It's not. I don't know. I know. I understand your point. Like at this point, being and obviously I think we all are. But I'm not. To me, it's the weak link. It's the weak link in the show, and it bums me out because he's a great actor. I've enjoyed him for many, many years. But I think that just something's not working for me.
Well, I'll unpack a little further. I think I kind of like. I like this. I don't know. I do like. This guy Frank. I'm starting to believe that this guy Frank is Vince Vaughn as opposed to Vince Vaughn is playing this guy Frank.
Okay.
In other words, so like we talked about how Nick Pizzolatto wrote these characters very specifically for these actors. So you got to kind of think that he's got a type of guy in mind. So if you look at it from that perspective, maybe Vince Vaughn is that guy, or maybe he wants Frank to be this kind of Vince Vaughn-y guy.
I mean, my take was this, and we will get to this more when we talk about his specific plot pieces, but I thought about this today, and the conclusion I was sort of coming to was like, I don't actually think that Vince Vaughn is doing a bad job with the character or words he's been given.
Right.
What I've actually decided is that because every episode, we're 50% of the show deep now.
Yep.
So like it's easy enough to make the decision, which is that this is the characters we're being given, and sure, the plot swinging back around is going to be, maybe we'll have some crazy epiphany in episodes 5 through 8, but I feel like when I watch the other 3 characters, I'm watching one show. When I watch Vince Vaughn's scenes, I'm watching another show.
Right.
And I don't actually think that his character in the context of this season and what we're seeing out of the season so far, it doesn't fit. It's not like, it doesn't match. And I think that's the reason that it feels out of place when I see him on screen. So I don't actually think it's his fault.
Right.
I actually just think it's so far anyway, an improperly placed character in the context of this particular narrative of True Detective Season 2.
Fair enough. I'll buy that. One thing I did notice about this episode is what sort of the visual. It had a tone difference. This episode did not, to me, have the same tone of the first 3. Visually, it looked a little differently. Obviously, we talked about Cary Fukunaga directing all 8 of the first season, and then Justin Lin doing the first couple. This one is directed by what's his name, Jeremy Podeswa, who's like, I think it's Podeswa.
Sure.
But he's like an HBO sort of A team guy. He's done
Right.
a few Game of Thrones and a few more coming up for in 2016. He's done a bunch of Boardwalk Empires. He's done a couple of Ray Donovans. So he knows what he's doing. He's very good at TV stuff. He's done some Newsrooms, The Tudors. So he's kind of like,
He also has that Iwo Jima battle in the Pacific, right? That's like one of his big claim to fame.
yes,
Like a huge acting set piece.
Yes, exactly. So what I noticed about this immediately as I'm watching this is like, I don't know. I feel like there's a big action set piece coming, because I feel like this is. I didn't really love the way the sort of the just the normal dialogue and everything else was directed. The rest of the movie, I thought it was kind of flat. In this episode. But he's really good at directing action.
Yeah.
As we saw,
Sure.
He did a wonderful action sequence in the back. The rest of it felt kind of flat to me. Like, usually with True Detective, you can expect, pretty good dialogue, some outstanding acting, great writing, and dialogue, same thing, and then like visually, you're seeing some very cool set pieces, some very cool, aesthetics. That's what we're used to from season 1, and even episodes 1 and 2 did that, and a little bit of 3. This one, not so much. This one just felt like episodic television until the shootout, in my opinion.
Sure.
And Joe, did you tune into the visual style of this one at all? Or are you cool?
Well, I said this last week, and I don't know how much of this is just because this is set in L.A., and so there is no mystery to me.
Right.
If you said something in Louisiana and you tell me that this is, and you show me something bizarre and interesting, I have no experience with it, so it's interesting. L.A. there's no mystery here for me, but I don't feel like it's that cut and dry. I think that there is that little hint of what made last year so unique. It's kind of missing.
Okay.
And I don't feel like it's appeared. I don't think that anything is wrong with it. I just think that one extra thing that was so right last year just hasn't happened. And does that make any sense?
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean
I
bad
totally agree.
television by any stretch, but there was such a unique thing happening last year, just didn't happen so far this year. But the performances, with one exception, they're coming. I mean, they're coming. I mean, they're doing great work. I think it's neat.
Well, I mean, philosophically, when we will get into the episode. But philosophically, is it? Are we overdoing it in general with the comparisons to season 1? Season 1 was great. It's encased in amber. It sits there. It has a few detractors. Very few loud detractors. Andy Greenwald being one of them.
Sure.
There's a lot of detractors, but mostly season 4 is largely well received and largely considered like fantastic television.
Season 1, you mean?
Season 1, yes. So season 2. Is it fair that we're like, that we're doing a lot of like, I don't know. Every conversation starts with like, well, in season 1, is that fair?
Well, I think season 1 is obviously very sensationalized at this point, and somebody actually did make a comment last week in the episode, which was that you guys don't need to talk about season 1 so much, and I think that is true. It's very hard to avoid doing, but we will try to make an effort here to stick with the second season. But what I think I've noticed about modern television, with premium television, if as it is, the production values, the acting, the writing, and all is so high with so much television nowadays. most any show that you hear a good thing about and you flip on the first episode on Netflix, you'll get hooked.
Yeah.
That's how these things work. Even if the quality level is not, all-time high kind of level, you'll watch the whole show for the most part, unless you are so distracted or too busy to do it. So if you think about True Detective Season 2 in the sense that this is a very good show, and if we didn't know anything about Season 1, if this was just a standalone first season of a new show, which it could be because of the nature of the show, you would be very much enjoying this. We'd be singing its praises.
Yeah, exactly.
All the time. It would be quite honestly probably pretty incredible to us.
Right.
I just don't think that like Season 1 at this point we weren't saying the same thing that we said in the end.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to not say another word about Season 1 this episode.
Because people forget. Season 1, they're like, I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
Or what is this show? And then it's like, oh, it's the best show ever. So let's give it a chance. All right, enough about that. This show's happening. It's great. We get a little more character development. Let's start with our guy, Officer Woodrow, Paul.
Yeah, so this was exciting for me because I'm a big Taylor Kitsch fan. As I mentioned,
You wanted to see Taylor Kitsch, in his Speedo. Was it Speedo? What was that?
I don't know what he was wearing,
Right.
but
don't act like you don't know. I know I'm a Taylor Kitsch guy too. Sorry.
But last week, I made mention in the predictions that I felt like there was going to be a big push in this episode. You were going to see one of the characters, the two sort of silent characters, Frank and Taylor Kitsch, Woodrow, the two that seemed like weren't really sure what they were doing yet, break out into a new direction. So that clearly happened with him in this episode. This was like a big moment for him. It's also nice that they gave Taylor Kitsch some real material. Like he's famous for just kind of grimly staring and just saying something like this.
Yeah.
Like that's what he does. That's what he's famous for doing, and he's very good at that. But the tears and the he's so despondent after blacking out and doing that. Like I appreciated it, and I also made reference last week to the fact that it was interesting when you see handsome people in weird dramatic situations like this, where a lot of the characters are very ugly. And you always wonder what's the point. You're aware you're casting somebody who's super handsome. In his case, in that scene that he has at the diner when he gets crazy eyes, he was a very ugly character in that moment to me.
Right.
And I was like, okay, this is the reasons.
Well, let's talk about what I agree I agree with a lot of it and disagree with a lot of it. Joe, I want to get to you in 1 second, but I just want to set up what happens. I mean, we see Paul, and it's clear that he had a few drinks too many, and ended up with his friend, his old Black Mountain friend. Those blackouts I haven't known those blackouts in a while where you wake up and you're like, what happened? I slept with a dude.
Right.
Oh, that happened last night.
Yeah.
But except for that camping trip, Joe, we always talk about, but the last time, but that, it was kind of, interesting because he wasn't like, I'm going to punch this guy in the face. He was clearly distraught.
Yeah.
He had to get out of there. He's kind of like knew this happened. He knew that he found himself there.
Right.
But it was just an interesting development. And his sort of struggle was, his outburst outside, him trying to cover up for it, and calling Velcaro to pick him up.
Yeah.
It was all very interesting. I have my thoughts on it. I didn't really love any of that stuff, actually.
Really?
No. But before I talk about it, Joe, what did you think of that?
I think you're totally wrong. I thought that was great.
Good.
I thought that worked like gangbusters. I love
Joe. Same page.
He's great.
Keep going. Sorry.
I thought that just went off like gangbusters. I mean, when he woke up completely lost, completely confused, and you saw it dawning on him like, oh, I know where I'm at. You could see it in his face. I did not wake up in the house of a woman. You could see it just hitting him. Like, damn it, I did it again. And of course, confirmation when he goes out there. And the need to leave, the need to run. Most of us have felt that in some way or another. Probably not to that specific enough, but we definitely felt like hey, I got to get the hell out of Dodge.
Sure.
And then that cab ride, the shame, it was so specific. The work was so clean because it was very clear that if that was a woman, he would not feel that. You knew that it was a shame that he had done this thing that he believes is wrong.
Right.
And he's dealing with that part of himself that he believes is not okay. And then I love the scene in the diner because that was redemption for him. Like this is the best thing that could happen. It will make everything else okay. Then I will not be this other thing that I don't want to be, that I can't be, that I'm not allowed to be. And I love that. And that was what made him look so nuts. They just put it all on her.
I just sort of feel like I respect what both you guys are saying. I feel on both the performance and the storyline. The storyline just seems very. This is the one thing I said since episode 1. This is the one storyline that just seems very cookie cutter to me. It just feels very much like he's repressed. He's gay. He's having issues. He's got PTSD. He's brooding. He's smoldering. He's pissed about it, and he's going to repress it, and that's what's going to happen. I mean, like I get that. I just feel like there's nothing fresh here about that so far. I'm gonna really, I'll wait and see where this happens. There is an eruption happening, so at some point, so we'll see. It's very cool to see again how competent he is later. I like seeing Taylor Kitsch in action.
Yeah.
So him in the shootout is like, Taylor Kitsch, I like him as the military guy. Contact left, all that stuff is cool. And I love all that stuff. And he was great. And that was very cool to see him in action. As far as his acting performance, I think he's serviceable. I'm not, I don't have pictures of Taylor Kitsch on my wall like you and Joe and Julia. But I think he's serviceable. And I think that, I didn't hate it or love it. I just thought like, oh, there he is doing the thing. He's upset. So I don't know. What I did love, however, that was very specifically. Flippo, you okay?
I'm good.
All right. But is that your big rig you're driving? What was that?
No, that was never mind. It was a text that popped through.
Okay, never mind. So I think very specifically, the specificity of how it was written about Velcoro going to pick him up, and Velcoro pick your cure.
Yeah, pick your cure.
In the glove compartment.
Yeah,
he's got the pills. He's got a joint. He's got some whatever you need to get right. And he chose. I like that idea. The idea of that, and these kind of two damaged cops going to start their day. I like the idea of that, but I don't know. We'll see. And then you have the news. She's pregnant. He's happy. We all know we're watching this going, come on, buddy. But I guess that's what we're supposed to be doing. So there's that.
Sure.
Let's move on to Annie really quick. Let's make sure we can do the characters this time. So we see that she's finally the chickens are coming home to roost in her department.
Right.
The relationship she's had with this her subordinate, which she ended in a very cool way last week.
Yep.
Has come back. He's filed an official complaint when IA has gone up to her, and we also found out that there was something between her and her old partner. And I thought that scene, on the flip side, that scene was well played and supremely well acted. Yeah. And I loved everything about what I saw there. I mean, what did you think of that one?
You're talking about the entire sequence from where she gets called to the office until she leaves.
Yes.
Everything. I liked it. It's she's doing a good job. It's nice to see they're giving her a little bit more than the one note that she had been playing for the first 3 episodes. She had really been playing one note pretty much solidly. She's getting a little bit more. It's a good note. She's been doing a very good job with it. I definitely liked all that stuff with the boss. It also it shows you sort of like the power of what's his name, the mayor, who's the guy who's Chazani. Yeah. It shows you his power that she's just immediately getting thrown under the bus.
Yes.
You kind of knew that was going to happen.
Yep.
And as evidence then by the end of the episode, you're seeing all of these characters kind of spiral out of control on some level, and everything's totally out of control now at the end. So next episode will be very interesting in that sense. But yeah, I agree with you. I thought it was well acted. One of the more interesting parts of the episode for sure.
Yeah, Joe?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I really do. I like the way she played it too. Like the genuine, like, are you kidding? You cannot be serious.
Yeah, like they're high-fiving each other out there. I like that line. That was good.
Yeah, and it's funny because it is kind of up, and it does kind of shine the light or hold the mirror up. Pardon me, because for me, I absolutely would feel if she was a man and it had been flipped, then I would absolutely have been like, yeah, you should brought up IA, should definitely be involved. But because she's a woman, and I kind of my point of view has been this guy's ridiculous that he's bringing charges. That's goofy.
Right.
So it's kind of funny to have
like she's hot. Like, why are you bringing charges?
What are you crying about, man?
Yeah.
But I agree with you, Ben, that she's been playing one note because that's what she's been given. And I think the idea is that
shots fired at Nick Pizzolatto.
No, not one note in a bad way. Like one note in like a very convincing way. Like I totally buy into the rage that I've seen for episodes 1 through 3.
Right.
Like it's a character choice to make her play that all the time.
Right, which is I'm referring to that's what she's been given.
Yeah.
Meaning like this is Pizzolatto wrote her this way, but I guess what I'm translating that is written as a one-note character. Go ahead, Flippo. Sorry.
As you said so many times, we're halfway through an 8-hour movie, and we've seen her dad now. We're starting to unpack her a little bit. We're seeing that she is not, let's say whole. That's not the right term, but she's not emotionally complete.
Right.
She's emotionally stupid. And there's good reason for that. And we're starting to see what Dad's deal is, and Dad's this guru to these wealthy folks. And what do you say to Ray of the biggest horror I've ever seen?
Yeah.
Right?
You must have. Yeah,
right. We're starting to. Now, if you imagine if you grow up around all that crap, and your deal is you're going to dismiss mom and dad no matter what.
Right.
So if Dad, this new age guru, of course, and we're going to find out whatever it was, whatever happened, whatever event shut her down that way, and it's interesting. I think it's an interesting thing that she's been so one-sided, and we're going to see that kind of. I think what he's doing right now is he's having her collide up against that. She's going to hit the end of the line for that, and this is will get her as far as it's able to get her, and that's going to stop. And then we're going to see where she goes from there. It's going to be fun. I think the next 2 episodes for her are going to be really interesting.
If it feels like I agree with that. It feels like these characters are sort of we're introducing them all and they're kind of breaking them down, and then we're gonna see them in their true, like, it's this whole idea of like these broken people, broken but competent. We see how broken they are. They're broken all the way down, and they sort of emerge like a phoenix as these competent people who can solve a case that's bigger than them and bigger than the whole thing. So I like the idea of that, and it seems to be sort of the reoccurring theme here. We talked about the power structure. It seems to be like where we keep going up and up this ladder of power. So what the things that Ray Volcora was describing to Annie in a great scene between the two of them,
that was good, yeah,
was really sort of kicking it upstairs, like this isn't about, this is a shakedown from the state level.
Like none of this family has ever gone to jail in 100 years.
100 years. Vinci's been doing the same thing we've been doing for 75 years. You really think this is about you and your stupid investigation? You really think that you are gonna survive this? Which answers our question I think we had in episode 2. Like, why are they putting these two? Like, why are these 3 the best people for the job? We know why Ray's on the job because it's part of that thing.
Right.
But Annie's not exactly the belle of the ball in her department.
No,
And we know Woodrow's not exactly Prince Charming in his department, but it's because they've got some problems and they're easy to sort of sweep under the rug if this thing goes sideways. Or so. But I do want to
when it goes sideways.
Right. I do want to talk a little bit about touch on Ray and then Frank, but Ray, this was a different Ray, obviously, as we've seen. He was at first it took me a bit to get used to. I was a little shooken by just how awake and animated he was in this one.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, what's Colin Farrell doing? He's playing this guy totally different. He's got his accent's more prominent. This is weird. I don't understand what's happening. And then I realized, he's sober.
Yeah.
He's not he's not in the bag. He's not high. He's not drunk. We see him in the first 2.5 episodes, 2.5 episodes as a complete burnout. Yeah. And now we see him on the job, and so and really getting it together. Even though he has all the goodies in his glove compartment,
right?
He's getting it together. And so that kind of pseudo pep talk he gave Woodrow was great.
Yeah.
And the cool kind of perspective on the way this thing is run as the elder statesman of statewide corruption and how this thing is run to Annie. I thought all that was great. I mean, this is sort of like Ray is coming off as very competent as a detective and as a partner and as a as a dude so far, right?
Yeah, well, they definitely did something pretty interesting with that, right? Because we talked about who was the most sympathetic character to this point last week, and I believe, unless I'm wrong and remembering this incorrectly, but I believe I said that he was the most sympathetic character. I felt that he was the one that you were sort of supposed to be rooting for, and at the end of this episode, I now sort of felt like that's the guy whose story I'm watching. In the sense that there's 4 main characters, but as you said, you sort of feel like Woodrow's is tertiary a little bit, and you feel like Ani is she's sort of the counter to him, and most of us feel like Frank's story is kind of just what the hell's happening? I don't know what that's doing in this story. But with Ray, that's the story that when he's on screen, I'm sort of expecting the big breaks to happen. It's you want the end of the story, you want him to come out okay, I guess.
Right.
And this was the episode to me where the most that I felt so far in the show felt like I had a character that I was rooting for.
Sure. I mean, he was dead in episode 2, so we're all rooting for him now. Every day he's walking around, we're like, yay. I do. We talked. I want to hear what you have to say, Joe, too. But we talked about his kid. Like he's going to give the kid up. How he's going to go along with his mom's thing. Like I thought that was a really sweet, gesture, giving the kid his grandfather's badge, and this is what this means. Yeah, and then not causing a ruckus, really like hiding in the bushes and kind of like, I'll let this family life alone. I mean, are we seeing? I mean, were we to believe that he's sort of letting this thing go and kind of like, I'll see my son on my terms, but I'm not going to make any official noise? I mean, I don't know. But Ray, Joe, what's your take on that? I also want your take on just sort of what we think of this Ray, the new and improved Ray.
Well, I think he's making some grown-up choices, right? I mean, that's the idea. And like, I'm going to bring you a family heirloom, but I'm not going to disrupt the house. I'm not going to start a fight. I'm not going to yell at your mom. I'm not going to yell at your stepdad. I'm not going to cause a ruckus for the neighbors. This is just between you and I. This is me. I got some clarity right now, and I'm going to make an adult move on this. And I'm also going to take the opportunity to tell you, I may not be around much right now because maybe I'm not any good for you. That's some adult stuff, and you can only really make those choices when you're sober. You're not reacting. You're actually making some choices. I think they're really playing him just right. I feel like again, what you said was right on. I feel like he's the main true character. He's the character I'm really pulling for. He's the guy I feel like that if there's redemption to be had, his will be probably the most dramatic. I really am enjoying what they're doing, and he's not been my favorite actor. And there's been a number of things he's been a part of where I've been like, but he's doing terrific work.
Like what? Like what, Joe Flippo? Colin Farrell? That guy touches everything and turns it into gold.
SWAT?
Loved him in SWAT. What else? Exactly.
Phone booth?
Phone booth.
Really, all right,
I was riveted. Keep yourself on the phone.
Trying to have an argument, just making a point.
I know. I'm trying to argue, Joe. Impressive. You're not here. I need to argue. I don't know. Ben and I we don't argue enough.
I wanted to just touch on something really quickly with Velcoro. I got distracted, so I'm actually going to toss it back to you and interrupt you in just a second when I remember.
Do it.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I'm sorry. Hey, here I am. Well, I agree. Well, I do want to. We can go back to Velcoro in a second, but I want to talk about Frank a little bit because, as we said, I'll go. You remember?
I do remember. I think it's funny that he's sober, but the scene with Vince Vaughn, he's still drinking a beer.
Yeah.
So it's like he's like, you're not completely wasted. Your head's not falling down while I talk to you. You're just drinking a little bit.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things where it's like, these folks who are like I'm not drinking. I only had like 3 beers.
Right.
I only had like three beers. What's that?
That cracked me up. That was like, that's like a true sign of an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Is like, like
I'll
you're
only have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 beers.
Yeah.
And then I'm fine. But I'm not really drinking.
Ben, I want you to look across the table, Ben. I've never had that discussion with that man sitting across from you ever.
What's
never.
What happened? Who?
Not even one.
All right.
What about when you guys were on that camping trip?
Hey, there's a lot more than. Never mind. All right. So Frank. So yeah, you mentioned this before about Frank and sort of the real estate he takes up within this landscape of True Detective. I mean, it's almost like you have Frank, it's like 50% Frank. And then 50% the other 3 characters. Yeah. Which is like, you have 4 main characters, but Frank has taken up a lot of real estate within this world so far. So I think that's kind of part of the issue. It's like, because he is so much of the story, like so much of the time we spend with this show, we spend it with Frank. Like, you really want him to be great. Now, that's probably my only thing. I don't know that he warrants the time that we're spending with him so far. Yeah. But I will say that what I'm realizing is, I think I touched on this last week, what I'm realizing is it was set up as sort of, at least I thought it was, that Frank's over here on one side as the bad guy, and then the cops are over here as the good guys, and it's kind of like Frank's the weird supervillain, and these guys are the Justice League trying to fight Frank. Like, that's how in my naive brain...
At the beginning, sure.
At the beginning when I saw the problem, I was like, oh, he's the villain, and these guys are the heroes, and it's like Lex Luthor. But what we're coming to realize is they're 4, like, he may be actually one of the detectives in his own way. Like, he's got a mystery to solve himself. Like, who is out to get him? And he's got an arc himself. Like, he's from rags to riches to rags and trying to climb his way back to riches by going back to crime. So that in and of itself is almost an interesting anti-hero story about Frank. I mean, I would almost sort of watch a Nick Pizzolatto written TV show about Frank in theory, So I do, and it's all connected, obviously, because Velcaro, and then he's connected to the murder and City of Vinci. But I don't know. We're seeing him. We're spending a lot of time with him at home. We're getting to know a lot more about his fertility and his wife's fertility than we probably want to know. We know that he's not going to adopt. We know that he's a little bit racist.
Sure.
The first
the avocado farmer.
Yeah, avocado farmer. I thought you people. I forget how he phrased it. But like,
so you'd be able to tell the dirt on your fingers.
I thought you guys are. One of you. Yeah, I thought one of you be able to tell. There's funny. And then in the other one, he dropped another sort of slur. And so he's which that's the character.
Sure.
I don't know. I mean, I'm buying Frank as a tough guy. I'm buying Frank as a guy. He went to I think it was the Armenian gangsters.
Yeah.
And then I like that conversation. I'm believing him.
Yeah.
I don't know that I care yet. Like the debate of like, is Vince Vaughn good? Is he not good? What's going on? What's Vince Vaughn? Is he broken form? I'm like, yeah, Vince Vaughn's doing okay, but I don't know if I care about all this stuff. I mean, again, hopefully by hour 8, maybe I will, but I don't now. Joe?
I completely agree with you. First time in how many years? I completely
15.
agree with you.
Okay.
I do not care about him right now. I don't even care about his wife. I don't care about their problems. I don't care about anything with him. And that I think is ultimately maybe worse than whether or not we agree the dialogue's working or whatever. That's all technical stuff. But if I don't care about the character, then I think you have a real and maybe that's the intention. If that's the intent, great. But if it's not, then we're missing something. And I'm not pulling for Frank. I'm not rooting for Frank. And I'm not. I don't know. Like the perfect teeth line. I've never been intimidated by someone telling me he has perfect teeth, but it hasn't happened. So there's that. But I don't know. I'm not pulling for him. I agree with you 100%. I think that lack of empathy. If you're not making the audience feel for you, then something's gone wrong with the writing or the execution somewhere.
Well, right. So there's two things that I noticed about Frank, and I thought the most about this guy in this review. Like I said the thing earlier about I don't feel like the framework of this narrative. It really, in context, his character doesn't seem to fit. It really actually feels misplaced. Right. As you said, he takes up a lot of real estate. So I think that might be part of the problem, is that the story focuses too much on him. If it was if he had 20% of the story instead of 50% of the story, maybe he'd be a better character. Right. But I
mean, he's a touch point for everything. But like I guess it's more fair to say he's at the center of it. Yeah. Because everything sort of connects back to him. Sure. And the city of Vinci. But go ahead.
So the first thing I noticed is I feel like every single scene I watch with him is the same scene over and over again. Yes. That's the biggest problem.
That's a great point.
I feel like I'm watching the same scene over and over again.
Tonally, like the way he's playing it's the same. It's kind of he's shaking someone down or he's kind of being upset and he's like, yeah, I need something else. I mean, even when we saw the eruption, even when we saw him get in the fight, he was kind of like, oh, Vince Vaughn's going to get out and fight. It's kind of like, hey, buddy, here we go.
It just doesn't, it doesn't. So if it's like, it feels like it's the same scene over and over again. And then the last thing is, I was racking my brain that I'm thinking, who could you have cast? Who can I think of that I would have been happy, in theory, if you had cast instead of Vince Vaughn? Mm-hmm. I could not come up with a single person that I felt like would have somehow done a better job with the character. Right. Like, I couldn't come up with anyone. Yeah. That's a problem.
Yeah. Well, again, written for him, so
sure.
I mean, the episode maybe if it was someone else, it'd be written for someone else. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard. I mean, it's hard. I mean, it feels like it reminds me when Tim Robbins kind of plays the bad guy. Tim Robbins is also sort of tall and a great actor, but he has sometimes he'll play a baddie or a bad guy and a tough guy. It's like the same kind of stoic kind of approach to it because he's not really erupting, he's not cursing anybody out, he's just kind of like menacing in a weird way. But I think that's what Vaughn's missing, is the menace for me. Sure. Like, I believe him as a toughie. I don't believe him as a menacing cat, but actually I think he's getting there. Joe, anything else on Vince Vaughn?
No, I mean, I've said my piece about it. I'm really pulling for him as an actor, and I'm pulling for the show. Sure. But my involvement in his character right now is just please stop. Like, that's where it's at. I'm like, and it is. Maybe that's it, Ben. It's because of the same scene over and over again, and I just don't care yet.
Yeah. Right. Okay, so we want to get into we'll touch on the case itself and sort of what brought us to here. We're on we're all on the hunt in this episode for my man, if my notes are in front of me, the
Maria, you're talking about?
Yes,
the pimp?
The pimp.
Yeah.
So we're all looking for him. Frank's looking for him.
Yeah.
So if all the roads lead back to him. One thing I found interesting, which the one complaint I'll have is not really a complaint about sort of like the construction of this world. I understand the idea of Vince Vaughn's character. Frank having connections to sort of all being the touch point, the window through we have to connect everything in the City of Vinci. I get that. It's weird to me that Annie's dad, David Morse, is also like a connect. Somehow, like he way up north in the hippie commune is somehow like, oh, that guy down at Vinci? Yeah, I know him. Oh, this thing? Oh, my daughter? Yeah, my daughter actually works there. It's like, how is he connected to everything? So it's kind of weird. I know it's a way to sort of connect, what's happening in Ventura County down to what's happening in the City of Vinci, but I don't know. I think that's kind of convenient in a weird way for me. But
that seems like it'll be relevant, like in terms of what we're building towards with like the more grand story,
right?
And how this is going to be more than just a linear police drama.
Yeah,
that's probably part of it. The weird stuff that's going to be the big corporate money and all that. Like, that'll have to do with it.
Well, in this investigation, we got to see a little more family. We got to see the mayor's, the mayor's daughter, right?
Yeah.
And get some information there. We got to see a little more about Annie's dad, get some information there. We had another cool scene in the bar with the singer and the two guys. I still love that set piece, although it was this time it just felt kind of flat.
Right.
I think that was the director's choice. Like, well, let's go back to that bar. It didn't have the same sort of mystical, magical feel it always does.
Well, it's because it's not wasted too. That's probably the other reason.
Right. No more David Lynchian kind of like weirdness going on. But
wasted or dying. So
we do find ourselves conducting a raid, and we do find out where my man is, and we go to get him. We meaning our three leads: Bizzaretti's, Woodrow, and Velcoro.
Yeah.
And some other blue shirts or red shirts, right, Ray? I mean, right, Joe? Some other red shirts.
Red shirts are plenty.
There were 10 total that walk in. You, by my count, unless I was wrong here, the two guys get sprayed in the initial fire. Mm-hmm. You see 3 other catch bullets to the head. And then there's the 3 main characters, which leaves 2 unaccounted for that you don't see anywhere when they all wake up.
Right.
So there might be 2 more cops that didn't die, or they might have all died,
right,
and we just didn't see those last 2.
Well,
how many bystanders from the protest did they get?
A bunch.
I thought 6.
It was a bloodbath. I mean, like that. Look, this is L.A. cinema has a tradition of long tradition of shootouts. I mean, obviously, Michael Mann's Heat
is
the best L.A. shootout, and then we've had some real ones in North Hollywood shooting. So it's kind of an interesting scene to see automatic weapons open fire, and of course, there was a big one in the movie SWAT. So Colin Farrell's no
slouch.
Colin Farrell's no stranger to machine gun fire in L.A. But I thought this was extremely well done. I mean, it was an extremely well executed action sequence. The drama was good. The action was good. The camera placement was perfect. It was like, everything was great. And even the biggest shocker out loud was my man Earl Brown, W. Earl Brown, the super burnout detective. I forget what's his name. Detective.
The
Dixon.
Heavier set guy that was tailing Woodrow. Yeah.
Yeah, he got it good.
Bullet to the head.
That was like, I hadn't seen anything like that on television in a while, where it was like that shocking and that well done what they can do with effects these days. But it maybe also reminded me. It made me think about. It made me think about the what kind of cops are they turning out of the City of Vinci, man? I mean, like, this guy he's not a crack detective at all.
No.
It's like him and Velcoro are the 2 finest out of Vinci. Like, these guys. Anyway, so the shootout was great. The execution was great. We got to see Bizzaretti's in action.
Yeah.
Totally believed everything she did. So thank you very much for that. Rachel McAdams and Colin Farrell was capable. We saw them basically was it a cookhouse up there? Is that why it blew?
We weren't really sure, but maybe it seemed like it was a cookhouse.
Well, maybe we later found out it was a setup or something.
Yeah.
But this was one of the better sequences I've seen, and the last I'll say, I'll let you guys talk about it, is this is also, you felt the need for them to do something, because obviously episode 4 was when we got our tracking shot last year.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're going to get something in episode 4 this year. So I thought it was great.
So, okay, a lot of complaints swirled around Twitter and the internet about how they were just trying to sort of copy the formula for season 1. But ask yourself the question, in an 8-episode show, you need to spend the time initially to develop your characters. If you want your first big action set piece, episode 4 is right around the time you'd expect it, about halfway through, to kind of turn up the heat.
Sure.
So I don't actually think that there's any criticism there in terms, if you're 16 episodes, you have a little more freedom, but 3 is early and 5 is late. Yeah. So 4 is kind of perfect. I mean, I really think it was one of the better done. It was the best done scene in this season so far, I think.
Yeah.
Very, very captivating. well shot, well acted. You definitely got to see a payoff with Woodrow's character, as you said earlier, with him in combat, as he says the only place when he's having that breakdown, he doesn't know how to exist in this world. That's the world he knows how to exist in, is combat.
He was dope. I was like, yeah, get him, Taylor.
And he's very believable.
Yeah.
So I definitely liked all that. The big question for me, and I'll get to you in just a second here, Joe. I don't mean to talk over, but the big question for me is like the fallout from this has to be so massive.
Oh my God.
There was a camera crew there filming something else, so you have to assume some of this is going to be on camera, whether it's cell phone camera or news camera.
Yep.
A bunch of dead cops, a bunch of dead bystanders.
Woodrow's already got some media heat on him.
Yeah, no backup. They go in without backup early. Like, you got to assume the task force gets shut down, and they're all under a huge level of scrutiny. So that's what I took away from it all at the end. It's also cool. The last thing I'll say is I love that Colin Farrell and Rachel McAdams at the end, when she's put her knife away, they're just sort of shocked and in horror, and they're kind of pulling at their hair. And in the background, you just see Taylor Kitsch just looking really calm.
Yeah.
And he just holsters his gun.
Yeah.
He just holsters his gun. And like,
doesn't need a blue pill for that.
He's just so calm. So anyway, what do you think, Joe?
Well, I agree with you on all of it. And I'll go a little further on it. It seemed like at the end, they were shell shocked. They were waiting for the adults, like the cops were waiting for the cops.
Right.
Like there's someone who's got to come and tell us what the hell to do next. And you're right about Woodrow, because this was the first time since we started this mess where he was absolutely not forced to make any decisions. This is just reacting. I've been trained for this. I'm totally comfortable with this. I don't have to decide if I'm gay or not. I don't have to decide if I should be a part of this task force. I don't have to decide if I just have to not get dead. So this is awesome for me. Perfect.
Right.
But it felt almost to me like the action sequence equivalent of a Family Guy joke. It went so much longer than I expected it to go, and the fallout was so much more dramatic. There was usually with these things the raid is perfunctory. I thought we were one more step on the trail here, and all of a sudden it's a bloodbath, and it went on forever and ever. And can we add more? Yes, let's add more.
Yeah.
And it was something else. And like you said, they did not need to go early, so the fallout's going to be on them. It's going to be on the task force. It's their choice.
And on the other side, I mean, the pimp guy's dead, and there may be some
there's no benefits. There's no upshot.
Right.
They got nobody.
Yeah. So.
And I love the choice the production made to leave it feeling like real LA. Like usually when people shoot in LA, they filter the hell out of it, or they wet the concrete enough so they get some better bounce, some better light balance. But they didn't really do that. It felt like there was a real live shootout in LA.
It wasn't a Tony Scott sort of job where it's like oversaturated and you got some. Yeah.
Which has its virtues, by the way.
I'm not mad at Tony Scott. Rest in peace, Tony Scott. But or your boy Michael Bay. But yeah, I get it. I hear you. I want to. We're out of time, but we're close to being out of time. But I did want to say, want to go back and do something that I forgot I was going to do. I forgot what the hell I was going to do. Oh, I want to say hi to our people in the chat room. Hello, people in the chat room.
Hello.
Like Dennis Boyd and Sylvia Love and Jonas Tiger and GBNF and Michael and Mojo Man, excuse me. Scorpio 180, I don't know, a bunch of other folks.
I was going to give a quick shout out. We received an email this morning, or
okay.
we read it. I read it this morning. I'm not sure if I know you're busy, your workday was swamped, but
yeah.
One of our, I don't have it in front of me because I was an idiot and left my notes at home. But one of our viewers was kind enough to write this really insightful email about this take on Frank's character that was really pretty interesting to me about the way he was raised, because we didn't reference it, but he uses this word louche, L-U-C-H-E,
yes.
which is another word I had to look up.
Right.
I think it's like a scoundrel of likable characteristics or something, essentially like that. And it's another one of these weird Pizzolatto things where you're like, why are you using that word? Why does he know this word? And the point that the reader made was that maybe that's a character choice intentionally, that he would use these big words, these sort of $10 words, because he was raised by rats and he has kind of a DIY education and he wanted to come off as like smarter or somehow more competent than he actually was. So he would use these like word of the day kind of things in casual conversation to seem that way. And that when Colin Farrell uses the word apoplectic, when Colin Farrell uses the word apoplectic, it's almost like a dig at him to be like, because he's had to deal with like 10 years of these ridiculous words.
Right.
So maybe it's a word he learned from him or something.
That's a good take.
Yeah, that was a cool email. It was well written, and I wish I had your name in front of me, but
it was from Danny.
Say
Danny's the name of the guy.
Danny.
Thank you. Yes, it was a wonderful email, and it was really, really inspightful. So I wanted to give you a shout out.
And yeah, very much. He was saying like maybe the character is very much like Stallone's character in Oscar. Learn a good word every day. Yeah, that was a good email. It was a good point. I hope it all comes together and it makes sense.
A couple of things I did want to touch on that we'd have to touch on. That there's a investigation underway. We missed that point with Black Mountain,
right?
Which is a sort of like Blackwater-ish type,
Well, yeah.
security
So anyways, that's Woodrow's former military operation.
Yeah, the private security,
something, yeah,
in Fallujah and all these other places.
And there was some sort of scandal that happened where there was some awful atrocity that doesn't want to talk about. Something happened in a village.
Yeah.
And this is also when we're supposed to expect that his first blackout sex with his former.
No, it's 3 days. It was the long blackout.
It's a 3-day blackout.
Yeah, Flippo's now was only like a day and a half. This was 3 days.
But it's interesting of note that when he goes back to the hotel and he's mobbed by reporters, they say a couple things, right? So the first thing they say is, Officer Woodrow, is there any truth to the accusations of the accusations against Black Mountain operatives and like domestic violence or something like that, or violence against women? Do you have a history of violence against women? Is what they yell at him when he's running away.
Yeah.
It's something to that effect. I mean, don't quote me, I'm paraphrasing, but that's essentially the gist of it. So that's like supposed to be, I think, a portal into something, his character or those people or something.
Yeah. We're gonna get to the bottom of what happened with the Black Mountain.
Yeah.
I'll crack the broke Black Mountain joke, which I already did. And the other thing that happened that we didn't really mention, in the conversation with Frank and Ray, Frank offers Ray another job, a way out. Hey man, come be a gangster with me.
And he says, "I'm not muscle."
Yeah,
that's when the trailer line of "Sometimes your worst self is your best self," which was the line we were all waiting for at some point.
Yes, it sounds like an old Sesame Street song or something, like a song from Yo Gabba Gabba. Sometimes your worst self is your best self. I don't know. I'm not making that up.
Yeah,
Flippo, you got young kids. Does that sound like one of your songs?
Yeah, that's definitely Yo Gabba Gabba. If you watch that show, you feel like you're on acid anyway. So why not?
Yes. And I think that's all we have. I'm wondering if I like the idea that Frank his use of like I'm being pulled back out on the street. I like the idea of that. You're pulling me back out on the street. Yeah, I don't know. I'm like, I wanted to make a comment about your comparison. People on Twitter talking about it and all over the internet talking about they're copying season 1. Again, look, for me, I don't care. Like again, I trust Pizzolatto. Like I trust what he's doing. Whatever it is, great. I trust it. Do it. If he's like, you know what, I'm gonna do an exact mirror carbon copy of season 1 from a structure standpoint, but populated it with new characters, put it in a new place, I'd be like, great. I'm not gonna be like, you're copying your own stuff, dude.
Right.
So I don't know whether this is the thing, whether every True Detective for the next 6 seasons, episode 4, we get some sort of massive shootout set piece. I'd be like, I'll set my watch to it. I'm fine with it.
Do we think, by the way, I want to touch on this really quickly because it is a little convoluted. When Woodrow is going to find his bike and he has his just fuck outbreak, his screaming, and his bike's gone, are we supposed to expect that his bike was in fact stolen, or that he left it somewhere that he's going to regret having left it because he was blacked out, and that's going to come back? That's probably what happened.
Yeah, they're going to find out. Yeah, we picked this up at the rabbit hole or whatever. I don't know.
So it was. You don't think that in fact you don't think it got stolen?
No. I think he left it at the toolbox or whatever. I don't know.
I also thought that scene was pretty funny with like him coming out and his old boyfriend from his Black Mountain boyfriend was like be who you want to be, and he's like, I DVR'd the game, eat some waffles.
Yeah, that dude sounds awesome, by the way.
The whole thing was just like,
that guy sounds like an awesome boyfriend. He's got waffles ready. The game's I TiVo'd the game. Have some waffles.
Yeah, you were just
I'm straight, but I'm like, hey, I like this guy. Yeah, I'll stay.
The look in his eyes, and it's great. It's great. So. These are the only things I wanted. I just wanted to make sure I covered the Woodrow stuff because I thought. Yes. I mean, I was pretty engaged in his character this episode. So that stuff was funny. And then when they end up at the diner with him and his ex-girlfriend, and she tells him, you guys all watched it, but she says I'm pregnant, and he basically on the spot is like, I know now that I love you. We need to get married. Yeah. And she says to him, I guess I love you too.
Yes,
That's the line.
The words you're longing to hear from your woman. I guess I love you too. Let's do this thing.
It's so sad. It's just a grim scene.
That's what happened to you and Aaron, right, Joe?
Yeah, every time. It's very sad.
I think that's it. We'll see. Oh, and I do want to touch on one thing we didn't mention last week. Is there was a really, there's this alleged, well, not even so much alleged. There's a sort of a feud talked about between Nick Pizzolatto and Cary Fukunaga in terms of the credit, who got the most credit for season one. I mean, television is very much a writer's medium. So the showrunners and the writers, they do everything, and film is a director's medium.
Sure.
And so everything goes to the director. So in this, you found these two guys really clashing.
Yeah.
On, is it Cary who's taking the script and making my thing to it, or is it Fukunaga who's servicing me, the showrunners, Nick? And they fought about it a lot through all the accolades, and they didn't come out well. They don't really like each other as of right now.
It's unfortunate.
And there was pretty much a direct shots fired at Fukunaga in last episode. That movie director who is very tall, like Cary, also like of Asian descent, could be like Cary, and also mentioned a lot he's portrayed as this guy who likes to party a lot and kind of doesn't like care too much. Yeah, I'm shooting the movie, man. I was at a party last night or whatever. Kind of a dick.
Yeah.
So that was definitely I think that was something else, sort of a shots fired at our boy Cary. But
interesting.
So I kind of like that stuff when it happens, although I don't know whose side I'm on because Pizzolatto's exactly no Prince himself.
And
like if you
read his pretty amazing work.
If you read his Vanity Fair article, I mean, it's kind of like this guy, and then you read about Cary, you're like this guy. So I don't know if we're supposed to really like these guys, but they do good work.
Yeah,
it's kind of like you, Flippo. You do good work. I'm not sure if I like you.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Brad.
Sure. How about some predictions?
Yeah, let's do it. I kind of alluded to the.
There it is.
And now,
let me get Joe in there
AFTERBUZZ
first,
TV predictions.
Flippy Dippy. W so trippy.
I think Rachel McAdams' character is in for a real next couple of episodes. They're going to be. Like I said earlier, I think her what we've seen so far of her character, that type has run its course. She can't get any further, and I think she's running up against that wall right now. I think that pushing through and going early, that was her call. This whole shootout is gonna come down on her head. Obviously, her position with her sister, her position with her father, her position with the department, that's all going to crumble right now because that rigidness is taking her as far as it'll go, and I think we're going to watch her blossom over the next two episodes once she bottoms out. Okay,
what do you think there?
I think the string started to unravel this episode on our three main characters. If anything, I think that Frank will have to do more horrible things as the show continues. I think that seems like Pizzolatto doesn't have much interest in taking him in surprising us. It could be wrong, but I think he's just going to have to keep being darker and dirtier as a gangster, killing people and with his bare hands and whatnot. But I do think that our three main characters, the string has begun to unravel on their lives, and I think all three of them, it's just going to be a complete shitstorm next. Like I think the task force gets disbanded for sure, and I think that like there'll be something that draws them in to stay on this investigation that is not the task force. That'll be forced to in some way. They'll have to.
I agree. I totally agree with you. I think that the way through that is probably going to be somehow through Frank. I mean, I think that this is how I think they all sort of work together. I think Frank's obviously on this track and setting up something for a reason. I'm not saying they're going to work for Frank, but I think that the task force may or may not be over soon, but these guys are going to still work this case. And I believe that the forces are far beyond Vinci and far beyond anything. I think it's big California money. It's water. We're alluding to the sort of what's happening to the land and how much money things are worth. And we still got more of this Russian guy to see, this Russian gangster to see. Whether or not Vince Vaughn's guy is. Whether Vince Vaughn's sidekick guy is dirty or involved with Russian or not. But my prediction is they will all be working together, Vince Vaughn and the three, to solve this larger case and take down Vinci. Which Vinci, I keep saying Vinci is exactly like Commerce, California.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's actually Vernon. Someone said
Vernon.
it's so Vernon. I was like, oh my duh, it's so Vernon, California. It's actually everything about it, including the geographic proximity to Los Angeles proper, is Vinci Vernon. Makes more sense.
Gotcha.
Anyway, that's all I got. Joe Flippo, where can the kids find you?
You can find me on the Twitters at Joe Flippo, JoeFlippo, and my website is josephflippo.com.
And Ben, where can
they can find me at Ben Bateman Media on Twitter and occasionally Instagram.
And you can find me at Joe K. Braswell on Twitter, Instagram, although I haven't posted anything in a while, and Periscope, although I haven't scoped in a while.
Yeah, I'm the same boat.
I said scoped. But I'm going to get on all those things, I promise. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for making us the #1 show on AfterBuzz, I believe, and the number 15 show on iTunes. We love you guys. Please continue to rate us on iTunes. Joe loves fives. We loves fives. Thank you, all of you, for joining us in the chat room right now, and Mark and Sylvia and all you guys. And thanks for your comments. We'll see you next week.
See you guys next week.
Bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.